Hello and welcome everybody. Janet Beckers here, and I've got a very special guest with us today here, Lisa McDonald. Hi Lisa.
Hi Janet. Hi everybody.
Hi. I'm so pleased to have Lisa with us. Lisa and I have known each other for years, and it's been such a privilege to be part of the real stepping up that Lisa has been doing in her, very well established coaching business. And one of the really exciting parts is seeing her develop this real specialty on being able to help women who are growing their businesses, who are ready to step up into their businesses, but they're stuck at that decision of, you know what, I'm at that kind of breeding age and I'm not quite sure on the whole baby thing. Do I want to have a child? Do I not want to have a child? What is the right thing for me? That so often it can be holding people back. And we're going to be sharing today, the whole process of the whole baby thing. And we're going to be covering 3 really important questions that you need to be asking yourself so that you know that you've made the right decisions. So it's really exciting to have you here, Lisa. It's
exciting to be here, Janet. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I thought we would do is, to start with, I would love to be able to hear your story, to share with people from somebody like you who is an experienced coach who helps people to reach goals and make decisions. Why have you really focused here and been doing your research on how to help women with this big decision on the whole baby thing? So what's inspired you to do that?
Well, Janet, really, the whole baby thing is such a big thing, really, because women's fertility window is quite long. If you think about, the average age is probably around 12 that a woman gets her cycle, and, 52 is not an unusual time for women to still be fertile. But, we have these different patterns about what we think we're going to do, and, we have to make choices as we get older as to which direction that we're going to go. Now, for me, when I was in primary school, so probably back, I don't know, maybe grade 3, grade 4, something like that, I remember being with my grandmother who was sitting in the chair. She was in her 80s, I think, by that stage. And she said, I'm ready for God to take me when he's ready. I've had a fantastic life and I'm ready to go. It wasn't that she wanted to go, but she was ready. And I was so touched. It's something that really is just one of those defining moments, I think, really in your life. Because I thought, that's what I want to be. I want to get to the end of my life and think I've done everything that I wanted to do. We don't all know exactly how long we're going to be around for. My grandma happened to be around for 100 years.
Wow.
We don't know personally how long we're going to be around. So it sort of really developed a philosophy for me to go out and do the things that I wanted to do, and setting goals became one way that I lived that out and created new experiences and things like that for myself.
How fortunate for you to, at quite a young age, to have had that lesson at that particular time that obviously really resonated with you. That, to have that aha then at a young age, because a lot of times, people may never actually have that feeling of, I just want to go for it. They may never have that, or if they do, they're physically not quite capable of being able to do as much by the time they do that. So that's, I love the idea that it was so young. And go granny, what an awesome approach to life, to reflect back that way.
Oh, she was a fabulous woman, great philosophy. And I think, too, it was a really important thing for me, too, being a female, because I grew up in a very traditional household. I was one of 5, had 3 older brothers, and so my parents are very much, you do this because you're a female and that kind of thing. So you have sort of a mindset. So I think what that helped me to do is perhaps break out of that traditional mindset where, that I had to do things a certain way because I was a female. Of course, we all buff up against those things, but I think that really helped me to think about, well, what's right for me and what's going to make me happy at the end of my life, whenever that happens to be.
Yeah.
as a result of that, I was looked for opportunities to have new experiences, and to do things that enabled me to grow. So one of the things that I did a few years ago, well, a number of years ago now, back in 2003, was I did a bodybuilding competition because I had a fear of being on stage. So I used that as a way to work on my fitness and my strength and so forth. But it also enabled me the personal growth to be able to get up on the stage and to be able to work towards that. And that was a pretty big goal. I managed to qualify for the international competition. So again, that was just going out, creating a new experience. And I think that's a really important thing for women. And it's a thing that gets overlooked sometimes. And that's that women are more than just a womb, where you have a of interests. And the modern woman, of course, has quite often got a career or a business, and is better set up financially, so her expectations about what she wants for her life is quite different to like when my grandmother was brought up in 1893. So life and times have shifted a lot.
And so I can see how you've got that, being able to do what you want, to make your own decisions. I can see then how that ties in with, helping other women to be able to make, to do what they want to do, to have those choices. So why, because I know that your book, you've been writing a book and it's almost finished, isn't it?
Yes.
What's it called?
The whole baby thing, exploring the baby or no baby idea.
Excellent. Yeah. And it's been really interesting watching the research in terms of personal interviews that you've been doing with people on both the issues, but also the different choices that they made and how each one was right for each woman. So I'm curious for you, out of all of the different topics, why did you choose that one? Like, what's your story that's made you so uniquely qualified, I suppose, to be writing this book and to be guiding women through this process?
Well, I think it's freedom has always been very high on my values. Creating what it is that we want, but part of that is to create a snapshot of really what you want to have in your life. And along the way, I always thought, well, that I'd have a child one day. But the way things panned out in my life were a bit different to perhaps what I imagined when I was younger. So I got married, and that only lasted a short time. And then I had a series of not so good relationships. And then I hit 40, and, I wasn't anywhere near having those kind of things. I was still single, and child nowhere in sight at that point. And so I had a bit of a meltdown, really. I think 40 was just one of those birthdays for me. I had always believed that, it's still possible. And I did lots of things to keep my options open, including work with a naturopath to maintain the balance of my hormones and so forth. But, it can be a really difficult time because you're having to redefine where you're at and what it is that you're striving towards. And, at 40, you can't muck around. If you want to have kids, then you've got to create a clear direction forwards. But also as well, if you decide that that's not for you, you've got to be able to create that as well, because, around about 41 is really where the steep drop off in fertility. So, and women who decide to try and go on that journey, of course, are then faced with increased risks of failure. So whether that's failure to conceive or whether the pregnancies don't last. So, and for me, it's such a big thing for many women, because they're trying to navigate their way through, well, what is actually really important to me? For some women, it's about, well, what does that mean to be a woman? I was growing up in a traditional sort of family. I remember my dad talking about, it doesn't matter what you do there because you're just going to get married and have babies.
Yeah, right.
Because that was the frame of that he had in his world, and that's all good and fine. But then when you reach a time in your life where you're kind of making those decisions, you've got all this conditioning inside as to, what do you think for yourself? What is being a woman to you? What do you need to be? Do you need to be a mother? If you're trying and you're not succeeding, what does all that mean? Because you can feel like quite a a failure when you haven't been able to pull those things together. But for me, we need to be able to live our lives to be happy and fulfilled, no matter whether we choose to have a child or not. And through all the failures and different parts of my long journey, I really had to come to terms with that at a number of different stages as to, where was I at? Did I still want to try for that, or did I want to just go, okay, no, that's it? But, there's a lot of thought that has to go into that because there's emotions and things like that tied up. But what I found is that the more you can get to the step and say, release yourself of the tie to the outcome, it actually makes it easier to move forward. So what you call a true choice point, because you're not being motivated by a perceived void or something that you're going to miss out on through
Yeah.
So for me, I actually did meet at 40. I met my partner, who's now my husband, and we did go on the journey of trying to conceive. And again, through that journey, lots of not having anything happen, some really short-term, I don't know if you call them pregnancies quite at that point, but then I had a miscarriage at 9.5 weeks too. So at each of those spots, you're having to deal with all the issues that are associated with that, and you're trying to manage your business and finances and relationship in amongst all of that. And then when there's failure, considering whether you're going to pursue alternative routes, which we did. So we ended up trying IVF and went through a number of cycles, and I reached the magic birthday where they won't collect eggs anymore, and unfortunately
yeah. So you can be feeling like decisions are being made for you. Yeah.
The doors are closing, and it's an opportunity there to, I think, every step of that way for any woman is an opportunity to reassess, first with the primary question of, do I actually want to have a child, to revisit that, and secondly, if you do, okay, what else am I willing to do or try in order to increase my chances of success? So we did IVF, that door closed, and the doctor said, well, the best opportunity for you now really is to do donor and to do it overseas, because at that time there really wasn't many people around where you could get access to donor eggs. So that's actually what we ended up doing. We combined that with our wedding, which was one of the things that we were trying to plan in between trying and thinking, oh, maybe, what's going to happen? We could be pregnant at this time, so how are we going to manage all of that? But we were lucky enough that we conceived my son, who's now 3.5. So I had a baby. Yeah. 47.5 years old.
47, and Charlie is gorgeous. He's such a beautiful character. Yeah. And the thing that I love about your story there, Lisa, is like if you've got, if people are listening to this and you're thinking, well, I've got, you might be thinking, yeah, absolutely. I can really relate to a lot of the parts of the stories that Lisa's had there of making those assumptions, but then getting to 40 and thinking, oh crap, I've got to make a decision which way I want to go, and are you happy with that? But in each part they're going along is, you to know that if you're thinking about, all the different types of potential journeys that there are, if you decide that you're going to be going and you decide to have a child, or if you decide that, things are going okay, but you've done them all. Like, you've kind of gone through every process. But I love how you've gone each time. Well, I saw them as opportunities just to reevaluate, what do I really want, which is, to me, is the crux of what you do, is really helping women to get super duper clear on what do they want, like what's right for them. And I love how you went through that process the whole time. So what we might just move over to now is, because you talked a bit there about the different feelings that you had at each stage, and those times of, the things that you had to take into consideration, the times when you got, the decisions are being made for me, options are being removed, so I have to reevaluate. So these were the ones that you went through. Now, as part of your book, which is really quite close to being able to get out there and get published now, which is very exciting. You interviewed a lot of women, didn't you? So it was sort of like from two sides of it, wasn't it? What were the purpose of doing those interviews?
Because I don't think that women have to have a baby to be happy. The reality is that women can be just as happy without. Some women are really clear, I do not want to have a child, and that never changes for them.
Mm-hmm.
Some women are very clear that I want to have a child. Of course, for some of them, and in amongst it, there are some people who change their mind, okay, but
yeah,
there's plenty of people who are very adamant from a very young age about what they want. And lots of people kind of in between, people who start up thinking, oh, I always thought it would happen, but it didn't happen. And if we define our self-worth as women just around having a baby, you know, that's just a recipe for all sorts of problems, whether you do or you don't have a child. But because that's been inducted into our thinking to a certain degree in many cases in our society and in families and things like that, is that we've got to evolve past that. We've got to flush out what's been going on at a subconscious level, so we can really look at those things and say, okay, that's the framework that's been part of what I was brought up with, but is that actually what's right for me? And it's not necessarily. And for women who aren't able to, for a variety of reasons, to have a child, there's still alternative routes. If they want to be a mother, there's other forms of alternative mothering that they can do. But equally, if a woman doesn't want that, there's plenty of other ways to create a fulfilling life. It's not the be-all and end-all. And there's all sorts of reasons why women choose not to have it. And some of them, most of them actually like kids. So it's not that they'd have a problem with, you know, not liking kids, contrary to what some people think. But they've still got to navigate their way through their own beliefs and feelings around that, but also how society interacts with them. You know, you go out anywhere networking or a party or whatnot, and one of the questions that gets asked from many women is like, you know, have you got kids, or are you going to have a baby, or when are you going to have a baby? And that can trigger off a whole bunch of stuff for all along the spectrum of where a person sits in relation to having a child. But the clearer you are about your choice, the less that's an issue for you. So I want women to feel free to make choices based on what's right for them, rather than somebody else telling them what they should do. And in order to do that, and also as well, if you do that based on what other people think, there's increased chance of regret about your choices. So I don't like people to take responsibility for themselves, do the work, and actually figure out what's right for them. So yeah, so when I did the interviews, I intentionally looked for a balance of women who chose to not have children and women who chose to have children. And some people, you know, explore different alternative ways of parenting. And somebody also as well that was very neutral about the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, I love that idea. So you've actually researched it on that point for all these beautiful case studies of people who made decisions and it was the right decision for them. So I love that idea and those insights. And that's a really core part of the book, isn't it? And you also did the research on the other side for interviewing women who weren't quite sure about what they wanted to do, to find out what were the problems that they were going through. So if we can just look at some of those, what are the main things that people are saying is the things that they're really getting stuck on making the decisions. So the main issues, and if you're listening to this and you're thinking, you know what, this is a decision that I'm making at the moment, you know, the whole baby thing, and, you know, trying to get that clarity. I'll be really interested to hear if you can relate to these main issues that women were bringing up.
One of the biggest ones, Janet, is uncertainty. You know, we, right, especially as business owners and people who've had careers, you know, you've had a way of, you know, this is what I'm going to do, and you go out and do it, and have become accustomed to just doing the things that are required in order to achieve a result. And you open up the whole baby thing, the conversation, and there's so many uncertainties in there. There's no guarantees if you try that you're going to conceive. There's just so many uncertainties. There's, you know, women have created a position for themselves in their career and their finances and their home life and their lifestyle. But what would happen, you know, if there's a child there? One, how does that all happen? How would I cope? But what would my life be like? Who would I be? I don't want to be lost in being just someone's mother.
Mm.
There's a whole lot of identity issues that come up for people. There's questions about, well, finances. You know, a lot of women who are running businesses or in careers, you know, in some cases they're the primary breadwinner in the family. So what happens if they're pregnant and they're off work or whatnot?
Yeah.
So huge things to think about. You know, what support networks do they have? Are they in the relationship? Some women are not in a relationship. And, you know, in this day and age too, you've got not just men and wing couples, you've got same-sex couples too, you know, so it's the same kind of issues that they go through, but obviously they have the addition of requiring a sperm in there. But, you know, relationship, and do I pursue trying to find the right man? You know, does it have to be the ever after man, or does it have to be someone who can effectively donate the sperm, a friend, or you know, so what are the parameters around relationship? Can they just go and do it themselves? And there's so many choices now. So to me, that's one of the biggest things, and that's really part of the basis of the book, is that it's a modern dilemma. Women have so many choices now, but with choice comes responsibility. You know, we've got to take responsibility for making our own decisions and the consequences that are part of that decision. And you know, if you start whichever pathway that you choose, you might have to be considering things like religious views. It could be moral issues, legal issues, and you know, so there could be lots of different issues that come up as a byproduct of going through it. So there's so much uncertainty. Finances, relationships, health. You know, is my body actually up to it? Am I going to have the energy levels to? There's a lot of different things, and particularly in that age group of, so the book's really looking initially with 30s and 40s, but there's certainly, because of alternative means to women in their 50s that are trying to conceive too, which some people say, but is that possible? Women have always had kids at that age. As long as you're menstruating, there's potential for you to conceive. So ladies out there who are not sure or don't want kids, keep using contraception. They say it's 2 years after a cycle if you're before 50, and 1 year with no cycle for women who have turned 50. So women can and have been pregnant, so if you don't want to get pregnant,
yes, make that decision. Be careful.
One of the interesting things I found in the book, you know, when I was doing the research, is that the statistics of older women, so like over 35s and 40s, and even you know, high 40s, the percentage of abortions or unexpected pregnancies in that age group is now much higher than teen pregnancies.
Really? Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. So it's interesting because that will quite often be, you know, for a lot of the women who will be listening to this are either in established businesses or they're in a startup business. And so you talked about uncertainty. So a lot of them may be in that age bracket where they're going, right, you know, do I still have options? Can I make this decision? But you know, when you said right there at the very beginning about uncertainty, because in business, especially, you know, when you're in the startup phase or, you know, just in the first few years, there is already a lot of uncertainty. And so this is a particularly important question for women who are, say, you know, over their 30s, over 35, moving on, who are also in a business that may be in a startup when there is already a lot of that uncertainty. To leave these sorts of decisions on the back burner can very often be sabotaging your growth in the business, because there can be seeming to be already too much uncertainty there. So what we might segue over into now is you were mentioning, we were saying at the beginning that you've got 3 questions that women can be asking themselves now that's going to help them to make that decision. So they have got some clarity there as well. Shall we go over into those now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these questions are part of a resource that I put together that's got 8 questions, but I thought for today that we just cover off 3 of the questions.
Yeah.
Now, one of those is, the first question is, do you believe you can be happy with or without a child?
Right.
I think this is an important place to start, because it's about your beliefs and your conditioning. And if you, when you ask yourself that question, you look at what's the immediate response that comes up. But also what can happen too is that there can be a disconnection between your head and your heart, if you look at it that way, is that you might say, of course I get that. Of course I can be happy. But
Yeah.
really deep inside, is that actually what you believe? Do you believe that you can be happy whichever scenario? And if you don't, to be able to journal and explore those things behind that, looking at what your beliefs are, what your conditionings are, and to look at it through the prism of who you are now in your life and what you want to create in the future as you go forward. So it's a really important question for just starting off to look at. Do you really believe that you can be happy either way?
Mm.
And then obviously, if depending on the answers that you have to that question, is then being able to explore a bit further about perhaps what some of the blocks are, because these subconscious things will be sitting there triggering you off without you even realise. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realise is that 90% of how we operate is through our subconscious and only 10% conscious. So 90% is all your programming. And in order to create a new way forward, sometimes we've got to look at where we've come from and what ideas are still sitting there to be able to reshape our future based on what it is that we truly want to do.
Mm.
A second question that I have there is, how do you react when people ask you questions about babies? You know, are you going to have a baby? Do you have kids? As mentioned before, quite often in business world and socialising, people will ask those questions.
It's really common.
And for some people, it's water off a duck's back. To me, the clearer you are about what your choice is and where you are in your life, if you're really, really clear, it'll just be water off a duck's back. But if there's something else going on, you're going to react to it. So whether you react publicly, so we're in a way that other people see, you know, you could get angry or hostile. Some people get asked that. But inside there's something else going on. So in the mind, one thing, and in the body, perhaps something else. So as I said, whether that's something that you outwardly show or whether you just know that you're stirred up by that question, it's a really good question to ask to see what's being triggered off within you. Needs to be looked at, because those triggering responses are controlling your behaviour, and where your emotions are is where your energy goes. So by clearing up those things, you get to have more energy to put towards the things that you want to, rather than tied up in the turmoil. And you know, these things can also be a guide in terms of direction too, and things that we need to clarify.
And so you mentioned previously about journaling. So would that be a good activity for people to do here, is on these two questions, and then also we'll tell you where to go so you can get Lisa's resource on the whole 8 questions, is would that be one of the first important steps for people that they can do this week that's going to help them to start to get clarity?
So when I initially interviewed some of the women who are going through these challenges, I asked them, well, you know, what would be a useful resource? And they said a series of questions that would enable them to journal, so they're thinking about and reflect on what's going on for them to get some insight. So journaling, absolutely. So one of the other ways that can be tied in with that too, with the journaling, can be used in conjunction with or separate to, is meditation, where you're doing a similar thing. So because you want to be able to quieten the mind down and calm the body, because when the mind's in turmoil, the body is in turmoil too. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't realise is the very same part of your brain that you use to protect. So when you feel under threat, physically or because an idea is being challenged, it's the very same part of your brain that is used. So you can't create and protect yourself at the same time.
Right.
So
that's a good step.
So in asking some of these questions, what can be really important to do first is to create a space for yourself to ask the questions, where you're quietening the mind down and calming the body down, so that when you ask the questions, you can kind of breathe into it and feel what's actually coming up. You know, am I feeling a reaction? So sometimes people just look at what's going on in their head, but you've also got to look at what's going on in the body, because your body actually stores your emotions and things like that. So yeah, meditation and journaling absolutely are fantastic ways to kickstart the process of looking at what's going on there. And because obviously then you can look at what direction you need to go, what steps do you need to take if you've got stuff, nice technical word, stuff coming up.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, you know, even knowing, do I need some help to get through this process, is having that quiet moment and then journaling on these first two questions, and we've still got a third one to go, is journaling on that allows you to go, whoa, I actually do get really triggered by this. And, you know, I think we've probably all witnessed it. You know, sometimes you'll say to somebody, oh, have you got kids? And it'll be, no, don't want them. Why do you want to ask me that? Everybody asks me. Or it will be like it'll trigger grief. You can see it on their face as soon as you ask that question. And so I think all of us have witnessed other people's being triggered, but you may not recognize it yourself. So I think that's a really powerful thing, so that you can recognize, oh, okay, there is a trigger here. I'm going to need some help to get through this, to get some clarity. So yeah, I love that. So, and the third question, Lisa.
The third question is one that I suppose comes into all of the other questions, but it's more focused, and that is looking at, what do I need to have in place if I want to have a child, or if I don't want to have a child? What do I need to have in place that'll actually help me to create the life that I want to create? So obviously for somebody who is deciding, you might want to be doing things that keeps your options open for you. If you're really clear, no, I don't want to have a child, then what is it that you need to put in place to create a life that fulfills you? And the same goes, it's exactly the same thing for someone who's looking at having a child, is that, what do I need to have in place in order to create a life that fulfills me? So what do I need to have in place financially? What do I need to have in place in a relationship? Do I need to find a relationship? Do I need to ditch the one I've got? You know, you've got all those kind of things. And health. Because in order to conceive and to have a pregnancy and to function with high energy levels and to be able to do all the things that you want to do, you need to have good health. And each of those things that you might look at if you're having a baby, they're absolutely the same things that a woman not wanting to have a child or thinking not having a child needs to do.
Yeah.
We all need to make sure that we're doing things to keep our finances in order. We need to make sure that we have the relationship in our life that we want, you know, whether it's friendship, partner or whatnot. And, you know, we need to be looking after our health. So, you know, I'm a big advocate for all of those things for any women. And to me, that's part of where the whole baby thing comes in, because it's irrespective. It's about taking control of your life, figuring out what's most important to you, what's right for you, and how do I create that? So creating a plan is the natural, the third question there is creating a plan to take you from where you are now, whether that's in a place of confusion or uncertainty, or, you know, some people are kind of sitting on the fence, you know, it's like, so in order to make a decision to get off the fence, what is it you need to have in place? If you're thinking that you might want to have a child, what other things do you feel you need to find the answers to, or for a solution? So you can be really clear in a decision. Sitting on the fence, it literally is a very uncomfortable thing to do.
Yes, absolutely. That's where you get splinters in your butt.
Absolutely. And, you know, it drains a lot of energy. So while you've got all this confusion going on, that energy is all tuning up inside, whereas you could be putting that energy into whatever it is that you want. If you want a child, then you can put in the energy into that. If you want, you know, something else, some other goal that you're working towards, it's all about making sure that your energy is supporting where you want to go in the direction. And when you're confused, you can kind of flip-flop around, which means that you're dispersing your energy, and that's got consequences. So you're saying you got emotional consequences, mental consequences, and energy. And you're not going to create the results in your business, in any other area of your life, if you're flip-flopping around. And some women just keep putting the decision off. But, you know, they're not getting any younger. And as I said before, the older you get, the more things drop off. It's still possible for women to have babies in their 40s. As we said, you know, that's not a new thing. Women have been having babies later in life for forever, but most women aren't consciously doing that. going back, most people would have completed their families by that stage of the game. But it's certainly possible. So, getting really clear about what's important is crucial, I think.
Absolutely. And I like what you were saying before. It's around, you've got choice. It's about you having control over what you're going to be doing in your life. And if you're just either going, look, I'm just going to avoid this, well, you basically are making a decision.
Yes.
You're not having control. You're just, not taking responsibility for the decision. But the other side of it is, and this is a big one that I have found on any decisions that really hold me back, that will, exactly what you talked about, blocking that energy, all those sorts of things that can make it very difficult for you to grow your business and expand on it because that energy is being locked, is one of the first things, I find myself, is that, what, I can try and work this out, and sometimes journaling it will help me work out where I need the help. But to do it yourself, sometimes it's very, very difficult because, as you said at the beginning, it's your subconscious that's doing this stuff, not your conscious. And it's very, very difficult, to be able to tap into that subconscious yourself, to be able to work through the issues, to get past that blockage. So that's why I always have coaches for different things. Like I have one at the moment who's helping me to become unblocked on the next level that I'm going at my business because there was an emotional block. Right, I need some help. This is the person to help me. Let's just get it done. That's why I always think with this sort of thing, if you can work out, okay, this is blocking me from making a decision, and this is blocking me from being able to make that plan, is you may be able to work through that yourself, but having somebody who's got the skills to help to tap into your subconscious and find out what's really happening is going to make it so that it's going to happen so much faster, so that you can then unleash that on energy. And as you were saying, Lisa, in this question in particular, there is a time limit. So,
and it just doesn't get easier with time. It's and it's where people find themselves. Like the other thing that I meant to mention too in terms of relationship is we're living in a time where relationship, even people who partner up, going through all sorts of changes because, people separate much faster, but they're also repartnering. And sometimes when people are repartnering, those questions come back up again because the new partner, do they want kids? Do they not want kids? Do they want more kids? Not want more kids? So just when you think, okay, I've got into the 30s and 40s and there's no need to make those decisions, you might have to revisit some of those things because of change of circumstances. So
good point. This has been, this is such a valuable discussion for us to have. I know that a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, Hello Beautiful People, the majority are women. And if you're, in men and you've got these decisions that are going to be made with the women in your life, about, the whole child thing. So it's such an important discussion to have because this can be the thing that can be sabotaging the growth in your business. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's very likely you're in business or really wanting to. So, this is something you can't ignore. And so I'm so pleased to have these discussions. I can't wait for the book to come out. And so, Lisa, where can people go to get this extra resource that you've talked about, and how can they connect with you?
Absolutely, Janet. So if you'd like to go along and get the 8 questions, which are explained in much more detail than we kind of covered off today, really, but they're their opportunity for you to, in your own quiet space, to ask the questions and reflect and look at where you need to go in terms of direction. That's at coachlisamcdonald.com/TWBT for the whole baby thing.
The whole baby thing, yeah.
So the whole baby thing gift, TWBT gift.
That's excellent. And we'll put a link to that in the podcast notes for you. And we'll have a bit of a handout for you. I haven't worked out the topic that we will do that on there, but if you're listening to this on iTunes, come over to the podcast page. You'll be able to get the link to go and get Lisa's 8 steps and also we'll have a cheat sheet there for you that's going to be able to help you to be able to work out a few things, to take some action on what we've done today. Different to Lisa's 8 questions, of course. And so where can people find you on social media? Because what I would love here for everybody that's listening, if this has resonated with you, if there is, something here that's given you an aha, one of the best things that you can do is to contact Lisa and let her know. It's wonderful feedback for both of us to know that what we're sharing with you actually helps. So you've got a free Facebook group too, don't you, Lisa?
Yes, I do. And perhaps what we'll do, Janet, is I'll send you the link for that. You can pop it. Yes, there's a private. It's a private group, so people have to apply to go in, because I want to be able to keep that as a safe place for people to explore. So they need to be female. I ask them why they're interested in, and if they don't answer the questions, I'm not letting people in the group, because if they're not willing to answer the questions, then it's just one of my rules that I have. So if you want to be part of the group,
know that this is a curated group of people who are actually passionate on this topic.
Absolutely. And if somebody was to contravene that safe space, then they'd be out of the group pretty quickly. Thankfully haven't had any of that so far, but yes, there's the private Facebook group. There's certainly details on my website, so if you wanted to book in and have a chat with me, you could go to coachlisamcdonald.com, chat with Lisa. And answer, you can ask some questions that are a bit more relevant perhaps to you. The reality is that you can't crowdsource the answer to this question. This is something that you really got to sit back within yourself, ask some questions and get your own clarity, because you're the one that it affects. You're the one that suffers the consequences, short and longer term, of your decisions. So you can't outsource. You can try, but at the end of the day, even if you ask people for their opinions, which can be useful in terms of getting some insights, but you still got to make the decision yourself. So,
spot on. I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Lisa. And I would really love to hear from people when you're listening to this. Is this something that, either you've been really, really top of your mind, or something that maybe has been in the back of your mind, but, our discussion today has made you go, whoa, actually that has been playing around in my mind there. I would love to hear from you. So either, you can contact Lisa in the ways that she's told us. You can leave a comment here on the podcast page. If you're here on iTunes, I would be very grateful if you would leave a comment and whatever feels right for you for a star review, and you can comment on this specific episode if you like, or just drop me an email and tell me what you think. That would be wonderful to get some feedback from you. So thank you so much for your time, Lisa, and
the opportunity, and thanks to the listeners for coming along and listening to this topic. It's a really important one for women. For some women it's not, but for a lot of women it is, just in terms of making firm decisions to create the future that they want. So
excellent. And we'll let everybody know when the book comes out. That will be very, very exciting. Okay. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.